Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, my friends. I am just wanting to talk to you about signs of awakening, and I wanted to just tell you a little bits and pieces as we go along about me and how I found my awakening, and I'm hoping that this will resonate with some of you, and maybe you will not feel so crazy, understand what's going on with you, because, it can be a crazy time, and I don't want you to think you're crazy, because I've been through it. As we go through life, we don't really understand why a lot of things are happening to us. That's what we think. They're happening to us instead of they're happening for us. And then later in life, like where I am now, we start realizing why those things happened. So I'm just taking you back through my life so that you can see where I was and where I've come to, so that maybe I can help you if you're stuck in any of these areas in your life, So first, let me just tell you that if you are going through your spiritual awakening, these are some of the signs that will tell you if you are or not, because I didn't know. I had no one to talk to, and I want to be that person for you that if you don't know, that you have someone to talk to, someone to ask questions about, someone to go to, someone to learn from. So some of the things that happens are you feel like almost everything you've been conditioned to believe in your life is a lie. You're starting to honor your truth instead of blindly believing everyone else. So you're starting to look at things like maybe that's not really true. You're not believing everything you see on the news or everything that a teacher taught you or your parents told you, or, you're starting to your mind is waking up. Another sign of awakening, right? Your mind is waking up to the fact that just because people tell you these things, just because you see these things on TV, you don't even know really if they're true or not, You feel a strong call to break away from normal society, or what I will refer to as the Matrix. A lot you'll hear me talk about the Matrix. That's the way we were raised, is that these are the steps that you go through in life. This is what happens. You're born, you go to school, you graduate, maybe you go to college or you go to work, and then you meet someone and you get married and you have kids and you're working, and then maybe you're lucky enough to retire because you have enough money, and then pretty much maybe you'll have some grandkids, maybe you'll get to travel, maybe not, and that's you die, and that's the progression of life, and that's why we came here, and it's not true, but that is the Matrix. That's what we have grown up to believe. That's what I always believed. I think that's what everybody believed. You're also noticing self-destructive patterns, and you're healing through them in shadow work, which is another thing that I'll teach you and talk to you about. But you start realizing that some of the things that you do and you still are doing, you never thought about before why you're doing them. And now all of a sudden you are thinking about why you're doing them. You're starting to realize this is a pattern for me. This is, something that started as a child because someone told me something about myself and I believed it, and now I just believe it's true and I don't really know why, You feel a sacred connection to the universe, God, source, whatever that is for you. You start to realize that God maybe isn't really what you learned about in church, that God isn't actually someone that is a quote-unquote man or a figure that is actually controlling everything, and that you have to please God in order to get into heaven, and if you don't, you go to hell, and you have to go to church if you want to go to heaven. All these things you start realizing. These are all signs of awakening. I'm just going to briefly tell you a little bit back, and I'll reference it in a picture, in a post, so you can see where I started and you can see my evolution. And I'm hoping that some of this stuff resonates with you, makes you feel better, that you're not crazy, and that you know that you have someone who has been there and can help you, and you have someone to talk to, and have that community, that tribe, that person, that maybe it's not your significant other or someone in your family because they don't believe the things that you believe necessarily. So I want you to know you're not crazy, and I am here. I am that person. I've been through, a lot, and hopefully can guide you. So I'm just going to start off by telling you that I was that person that grew up going to church. I grew up in a family with both parents. My mother was very religious. We went to church every Sunday. I, was baptized, made my communion, my confirmation. I even sang in the choir. My brother was an altar boy. And I found out when I was 15 and a half that I was pregnant. And I know this sounds crazy, but I did not know it until I was 6 months pregnant, 5.5, 6 months pregnant. I found out I was pregnant. No, I was 16 when I found out I was pregnant. I was 5.5 months when I found out. I was 5.5 months along. And I was dating someone, and it was like my first boyfriend, my first real boyfriend. And neither one of us, he didn't believe me when the day came when I had to tell him, because I was too far along to do anything else other than have the child at this time. And he didn't believe me. Like, neither one of us, honest to God, quote unquote, remember how this happened. I know that sounds absolutely ridiculous, and it sounds ridiculous coming out of my mouth right now, but it is true. We don't remember where we were, what we were doing, and we weren't like drunk. I didn't drink. It just happened. So, this child was meant to be born. So here I am now. I have about 3 months to prepare myself. 3 months. Imagine like if everybody was only pregnant for 3 months. I didn't work. I was still in high school. I had to have a job. I had to have medical. I was babysitting still at the time. I wasn't making like any income. I was living with my parents. And not only that, I did go to a doctor. I wasn't feeling well. I don't want you to think I was totally like crazy and didn't even have any symptoms. I mean, I did get a stomach ache, and my mother took me to my pediatrician, and my pediatrician told me I had a stomach virus. Honest to God. This is all true. And then I found out I was pregnant, and I was still covered under my parents' health insurance. But at the time, this was in the 80s, and they didn't have the free health care that they have now. They didn't have all the benefits that, single moms and teenage moms and low-income people, we didn't have those benefits back in the 80s. So I couldn't get on any kind of state health insurance or anything. I needed a job that provided health insurance, but I was still in high school. So I couldn't work full-time 40 hours to get the health insurance, so I had to find a job. I found a job. Now, these are all, I'm telling you these things to show you that when the worst things, and let me tell you, like, this video would be way too long, and if you decide to connect with me at some point, I can go into more detail if this resonates with you, if you're going through this or you know someone who's going through this and you want to talk in more detail. But these are all just signs to prove to you that the universe has a plan, that the universe doesn't leave you stranded. There is things that come to us that help us get through these things, and we don't realize them in the time, but we realize later that the universe really did have our back. And this is just to show you that the universe does have your back. So I found a job working part-time that offered health benefits. So I would go to school days and get out of school and go to work from like 5 to 10 at night, and then weekends, a few days a week, and get health benefits for my son. And I was fortunate enough that my mom pretty much was a stay-at-home mom. As we got older, she did work part-time, but my dad was the worker bee of the family. He worked a lot, which is something that we'll go into with our now mentality around lack of money and working hard to make money, and you got to constantly do this to make money. It stems back to the way we were raised sometimes in our childhood and our beliefs. So back to working and going to school. The other funny thing was that when I had my son, my high school, so I finished my junior year. I got tutored at home so that I could take care of my son because he was just born. He was an infant. And I finished out my junior year of high school at home with a tutor. So I got this job while I was, home. And I didn't even have my driver's license yet. I got my driver's license that summer. So at first I was relying on, my parents or friends or, family By the way, my son's father broke up with me 4 months after he was born. Another story. It got ugly, but it all works out. My high school, as I went back into my senior year, so that summer while I was getting ready to enter my senior year and trying to figure out how I was going to afford to pay for babysitting while I was in school and working, my high school, a nonprofit group called Project Hope opened up and turned the annex building it was like a weight room for my high school, turned it into a daycare because there were a couple other girls within the school district that were also teenage pregnant moms. And they had volunteers working for this nonprofit called Project Hope. And they turned our weight room area annex building that the sports jocks used into a daycare. So when I went into my senior year of high school, I brought my son to school with me. So I didn't have to pay for daycare while I was in school all day. So I got to see my son take his first steps. They called me out of class. If he was sick, they called me out of class. And the timing, when I talk about, you'll hear me talk about divine timing, I couldn't have predicted this would happen. I couldn't have predicted that the year that I needed someone to take care of my son, they would create a daycare that wasn't going to cost me a dime, and I could take my son to school with me and still see him and take care of him and be with him. And he kind of became like a mascot. I was scared of what the other kids would think of me in high school because this was not a thing back then. This was like still on the verge of like being like one of those where they shuffled you away to have your baby and no one ever knew you were even pregnant, and then you came back all of a sudden one day. Like, remember back in the day where families would send their kids away to have the women to have their babies, and you didn't know they were even pregnant, and they would have to give them up for adoption. It was like, not much after that. So my son, got to go to school with me my senior year. He was at my graduation. It was crazy. The universe does have your back. And that's one little story that I wanted to tell you. And if this resonates with you, comment, let me know. I have continuous stories to show you upon my awakening, things that have happened in my life to prove to you that the universe does have your back, that you will be taken care of. And we don't know why sometimes things happen. Later on in life, we figure it out, but don't worry. Don't be in fear. Know that there are soul families and beings and angels and guides looking after us, and the universe has your back. So that's my first story. Please comment, ask any questions, and follow me for continuous stories that I can just prove to you through the years and be support for you. All right? Have a great day. I hope this resonates with you. Love you.